Again, we can take an example from an Indian context. How are task boundaries defined? Many examples abound. I would like to take an example of a scholarship program, from scholarship for students from one of the states in India. This scholarship was for economically backward students belonging to a certain social strata. This project was initially conceptualized as a simple funds dispersal system. All that it had to do was provide scholarship to eligible students. So here was an e-governance idea, which was simply a means of dispersing funds to eligible students on a periodic basis, the scholarship. Initially, the tasks for this project were centered around use of checks for disbursal of funds. So all that one needed in this project was the list of students, the amount they were eligible to, and then issue them with checks. And of course, one needed to have their addresses so that the checks could be mailed. But once this sort of task boundary was drawn, it was subjected to further levels of discussion and analysis. What if the checks are lost? What would happen? The students will keep coming back to this authority and keep asking them, what happened to my check? So this will add to the workload of the department employees. What if the addresses were incorrect? What if the student changed residence? So that means I'll need to have a system where periodically, because these students belong to a certain economic and social strata, so it was felt that they may not have permanent address. So every time they change their address, they'll have to come to the authorities, furnish the new information, which will have to be maintained in the system. Again, this would have added to the workload. So the tasks were re-looked at. The question now was, why checks? Why not direct fund transfer to the bank account? So this simple decision on the mode of transmittal or dispersal of funds changed the work, shifted the entire burden of workload from one entity to another. So all that authorities had to do was have the list of students, their bank account, and then funds could be directly transferred. There was no question of maintenance of address and all those other issues we just talked about. But then this raised a different set of questions. Who is to ensure that they have bank accounts? What if they don't have bank account and then they have difficulty in talking to the banks, and then because they had, we have to remember that these students come from a certain background. So am I simply taking one set of workload away and replacing it with another kind of workload? So again, the tasks were re-looked at. Now the idea was, these students are already enrolled in some education institution, and that is why they are entitled to a scholarship in any way. So why not ask the educational institution to which these students belong? Why not ask them to be responsible for ensuring these students had bank accounts? Again, we notice that now the way we are defining, the way we are looking at the task is shifting from taking up responsibility, a lot of responsibility on our own, to delegating it to a suitable agency. These discussions went further, and then what ultimately defined the scope of the project in terms of task boundaries was come out that design an e-governance system which will support self-service, which will support direct funds transfer, which will support all the requirements that the educational institutions had for collecting this information and then liaising with the scholarship granting government authority. So we notice through this example how task boundaries play a key role in defining the character of the project. So had the project retained its original characteristic, disbursal by check, it would really not have been a true e-governance project. It might have been simple computerization, automated printing of checks instead of manually writing and then posting it. So it would have been a very basic computerization exercise. But what started as a basic computerization exercise, through an analysis of tasks, through analysis of workload, through analysis of capabilities, the resource limitations, became a true e-governance project where which had the characteristics of anytime, anywhere, self-service, automated funds transfer, minimal use of paper, and so on. So task boundaries are extremely critical to understanding projects.